Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Sadik Zion in Baba Basra as we learn for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Sunnah Sarv Shivya. We're on Sadik Zion about Aleph, a little bit below the halfway mark, even with the Tosas Lo Tzricha. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Ben Yosadik. Yesterday we learned that wine that's not really wine. That you put some water over some leaves, some residue of grapes at the bottom of the barrel, whatever was left there, and you put some water on it, and you got the same amount of water out that you put in. You put in three measures of water, and you got out 3 measures of water. That's not really wine. That's not really wine. So you don't make a bar pegofen on that. But l'chumra, the rabbi said that if it's truma, if the grapes were truma, the first splash of water, let's call it, and the second one, that's still usur. The usur for who? Usur for a non-kohen. In other words, you have to treat it like truma. The third level, and it's after you poured water on it once and you got some liquid out, and you pour water a second time. The third one, that's already a non-kohen can drink that. Okay. If it's mice or sheni, that's wheat Yerushalayim. We're only machmer the first. Again, it's not really wine, so it's not really mice or sheni. But we're going to be machmer if it's mice or sheni grapes, and you put wine, and that wine has to be drunk in Yerushalayim. So the first time you put it in, that has to be drunk in Yerushalayim. The second time it's mutter. Rav Meir is machmer. In each case, is one more step. If it's hegdish, then even 3 levels, 3 splashes. The first, second, and third are usur. It's usur to be used in a profane manner. The fourth one is mutter. Rav Meir says even the fourth one is also. If it has some tom of wine, you have to be machmer. So then we explained. Then we said, okay, that hegdish is only if it's a hegdish kedushas damim. If it's hegdish mamish kusa guf, then you have to be machmer forever. And if it's meiser, we say you have to be machmer only the first splash, not the second one. That's only if it's real meiser. But if it's meiser demai, meaning it's a suffix, and in most cases they give the meiser anyway, then you don't have to be machmer at all. In other words, that kind of meiser demai, if the grapes are meiser demai, then if you put water on even the first time, you don't have to treat it like meiser sheni, and you could drink it in outside of Yerushalayim. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, this is where we're up to. Just like we talked about Gabi Isser, meaning that these were chumras, the rabbanan. Let's say by truma, the first and the second splashes, it's only mutter to a kohen. The same way in other words, is it machshir lekabel tuma something or not? Again, food which is cut off from the ground, not attached to the ground. In order for it to become tama, you have to be machshir. You have to put some liquid on it first. It says that the same way thing applies there too. That just like you have to consider it wine midrabanan as chumra, let's say by truma, the first and second splashes. The same way it's considered wine for being machshir something kabel tumah. Now, what's machshir something kabel tumah? A liquid. More machshirin, the mission machshirin tells you the 7 liquids. One is water, and one is wine. Among the other ones is dvash, etc. Okay. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? Hechsher and demai? What difference does it make? What's our concern over here? You're putting in some water into some grapes, some smashed up grapes, residue of grapes, and some water, colored water comes out. There's a little bit of a taste of water. What's the difference if it's water, if it's wine? We're saying, is it water, or is it wine? The Gabi Truma makes a difference. The Gabi Meiser Sheni makes a difference. The Gabi Hegdish makes a difference. Is it water, is it wine? But the Gabi Mashal Kabbatum, what's the difference? Water is Mashal Kabbatum and wine is Mashal Kabbatum. What's the difference? We said the same thing about Achsher. If it's water, it's anyway Machsher. Is also Machsher. The only difference is that Rashbam points out that wine is always Machsher. Why? Because it says in the pasuk, the Siv says Tishta Chemar, B'Ksiv V'chol Mashke Sheyishta. In other words, wine is considered a drink. So wine is already Machsher Kabbatum, we had Machshav or not. But when it comes to water, it says these water is only machshir some kabbatuma. If you were happy with this water, you wanted the water to go here. If you didn't want the water, then it's not machshir kabbatuma. So he said, but what's the difference over here? If it's water, obviously you put this water onto this sludge of grapes, right? Of grape, this mass of grapes. You put some water on there, and some water came out. Okay, it's not really wine, not really wine. But Gabi Truma were machshir 2 splashes. The Gabi Meiser Sheni 1 splash. The Gabi Hegdish 3 splashes, according to the Tanakhama. Fine, you're machmer. You have to treat it like wine. But what's the difference if it's wine or if it's water? Either way, you did this on purpose. You threw the water on there. Just we machshel kabbatum. Either way, Shetam to make shaman. What happened was you didn't put the water on; it became timid. In other words, you didn't pour the water on this sludge of grapes, but rather you this mass of grapes of grape residue. Rain fell on it. Rain came down by itself. Okay, so rain came down by itself, so you didn't have kavanah for it. You weren't necessarily happy. It says, but keeping the kashakel. But once you took the water out of there, and then more water came on, it rained again. Rav Rami, once you took the water out and put it into a receptacle, into a vessel, because you wanted to treat it like a drink and treat it like wine, so you were machshvet. Either way, whether it's wine or whether it's water, even if it was rainwater, but once you took that water that fell on the grapes, and now it's this reddish colored grapes, reddish colored liquid, and you put it into a drink, that's your concern. What do you, can a Kohen drink it? Can a non-Kohen drink it? Can you eat it outside of Yerushalayim if it's meiser, etc.? You're concerned. You're machshavit. So either way, it's mashal kabbalah. This is let's reach up. Shnit me'ela. You didn't do it at all. It became tum by itself. Not just that it was rainwater and you put it down and then you took it. It became tumid by itself. Yes. Okay. So what if it became tumid by itself? In other words, first in the Habman, we're assuming that it wasn't rain. You didn't take this water from the sink and on purpose take it over there. If it was rainwater, yeah, but once you took the rainwater, presumably, and put it into the container with the grape sludge, you were machshavit. Says no. He says no. You didn't actually take the rainwater and put it on there. It became the rainwater fell directly on thing. What I said before, the rainwater fell directly on the sludge of grapes. So you didn't have kavanah. Therefore, it's not machshel kabel tumah. So he said, okay, it's not machshel kabel tumah, but the first and second levels were machmer anyway. That's machshel kabel tumah. The third level by truma is not, and correspondingly by meiser sheni and by hektish, their levels. Even the kanogit kamakam achshvenu. So what? The rainwater fell on the grapes by themselves, and it produced this drink of water. And 3 measures of rainwater fell in, and 3 came out. So it's not really wine, but we consider it wine. L'gabi truma, we're more machmer. Okay, and the same way we're machmer for that, we're also machmer that it's machshel kabel tumah. But if the rainwater fell by itself, you didn't put it on there at all. And therefore, if it's water, it makes a difference if it's water, if it's wine. If it's wine, you don't need your machshava, as we said. If it's water, you need machshava. So if it was rainwater that fell down by itself, if you put it there, so obviously it's machshel kabel tumah no matter what. What's the concern of it? Let's say it's water. You did 100 splashes, but it's all water. Water is machshel kabel tumah. Wine is machshel kabel tumah. Water is machshel tumah because you did it yourself. Didn't do it by yourself, Umar says. Rainwater fell on it by itself. Okay, so the rainwater fell on this sludge the first time. And what did you do? The liquid that came out, you drew it out and you put it in a vessel. You took it somewhere, right? The question is, what do you do with it? Who could drink it? Or where can you drink it? But by keeping the nugget, as you drew it out, you're machshir it that way. I'm going to pop up a porah shishos rishon. You didn't do it at all. The rainwater fell on this sludge of grapes by itself. Okay, you didn't touch the water. And a cow came over and drank it up. He saw some nice reddish looking liquid. He drank it up. So the first time we say that's truma. And the first time, what do we say? It's considered like even though you didn't machshav it midrabanan, it's also machshel kabel. Midrabanan, it's considered wine, so it's machshel kabel tumah. Then more rainwater came down, and an animal came and drank it up again. Now the third time the rainwater came on it. Now the question is it wine or is it not? Well, it's not wine anymore. It's not really wine to begin with, but it's not really wine, so it's not machshel kabel tumah. Isn't it machshel kabel tumah because water is also kabel tumah? No, you weren't machshel it. You didn't touch it. You didn't want that rainwater. The rainwater came out by itself. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan meant when he said Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Sadek, just like we say Lagabi Isra, that what? That when it comes to truma, the first 2 levels. When it comes to Ma'aseh Sheni, only the first level. When it comes to Hegdish, the first 3 levels of water that fell on that sludge of grapes and turned out to be the same amount of water, but it's colored now and has a little bit of a taste. So the same way we said that it's considered wine by Truma the first 2 times, by Maisa 1 time, by Hektish 3 times, according to the Tanakama, the same way we mean that those times is considered wine for Hechsher, that if that wine touches food, it's Machshel Kabel Tumah, but it's not. But the 3rd time, it's not wine anymore. It's only water. So he said, what's the difference with water? Water is also machshel kabel tumah. No, you didn't have kavanah at all. You didn't touch it. It fell on it by itself. The first 2 times were machmir, and we say the rainwater, even though it's not, you didn't machshib the water. You didn't consider it significant. You didn't put the water on. But the first 2 times it's wine. The third time, it's not wine anymore, and you didn't do it, and therefore you didn't have kavanah for it, and therefore the third time we're not mimachshel kabbalah because it's not wine and it's not water that you were machshel. Says the Gemara from the 2 dots, 6 lines from the bottom page. Amar Rav Sutra about to Yom Rav. Einom kiddush yom. You don't make kiddush on Shabbos or Yom Tov. You don't make kiddush el al yain or nasa. Only on wine that's fit to be used as a libation on Gavin Mizbeach. In other words, it's got to be good wine. So what do you mean to exclude? If you're trying to exclude new wine that's just straight out of the vat that hasn't been aged at all, doesn't have a good taste. But you shouldn't bring yayin right out of the vat for nesachim on the mizbeach by karbonos. But if you brought it, it's kosher. So if it's kosher for the mizbeach, even b'diavad, we should certainly be able to use it for kiddush. And the idea over here is, what do you make kiddush? If it's a bar perigufen, if you can make a bar perigufen on it, so Rashbam says perigufen is the same as you can make kiddush on it. So what do we mean to exclude? Wine, if it's not fit for the mizbeach, you don't make kiddush on it. You don't say kiddush unless it's right from mizbeach. What wine are we excluding? If it's new wine, that's right from mizbeach b'diavad. Dama Rabba. Rava says at the top of the base, you could squeeze a cluster of grapes, like we have, it's grape juice, right? You can make grape juice and make kiddush on it. Maybe you're coming to exclude wine at the top of the barrel, the pia, the opening, and at the bottom. At the top is the crud floats to the top, the cruddy stuff in the wine goes to the top, and the leaves fall to the bottom. Maybe you mean to exclude that. That's what you can't make kiddush on. You shouldn't use wine for the mizbeach if from the top or from the bottom. Then maybe kosher, it's also kosher. So if it's kosher, you should be able to make kiddush on it too. If it's kosher mizbeach, it should be kosher mizbeach for kiddush. Maybe come to exclude black wine or borek. Borek is white wine. Rashbam says, love, it's not white wine, it's not considered good. Another gear says bodek, like real strong wine that you drink that, it takes care of your stomach, it gives you stomach problems. It checks your whole body. It's so tough that the body has difficulty dealing with it. Or he lists on sweet wine, shalmarte, or stam wine in the cellar that hasn't been checked. You don't know. Some of the wine could be sour, like we said. Remember, we said this whole thing started when we said if you buy wine stam, you have to accept 10 out of 100, 10% can be wine that is souring wine. So maybe out of the cellar, you don't know if it's good or not. Maybe you shouldn't use that. Or shall smukim, or if it's made out of raisins. So maybe you're coming to exclude those. Those are not wines that you can make kiddush on. You shouldn't bring to the mizbeach from there. But it may be kosher, it's still kosher. So even if you buy raisin wine, or sweet wine, or white wine, or wine that hasn't been checked, you can make kiddush on it. Maybe it's coming to exclude yain, which is actually souring. It's souring. It was good, at the beginning, but it's starting to sour. Mazug, diluted wine mixed with water. Megula, wine that's been exposed. Remember, it's always a concern that a snake put his venom in there. Vishal shmarim, or wine made out of leaves that we've been discussing. You put in 3 measures and you get out 3 measures. Visharecha, it's got a bad smell. The Tanya Bakun La Yavi, you shouldn't be puzzled. If you bring wine of those on the back, that's no good. So maybe those things are the ones that you can't use for kiddush. Maybe those. We just mentioned these 5. Says, which one? Even mutekos, if we're talking about excluding what? Wine, which is souring. That was on yesterday's Amud Aleph. Actually, we did that on Shabbos. That Belkman says if it has a smell, it has a taste of wine, but it's got a smell of vinegar, that's okay. That's wine. Shub Levi learns that it's not. So that's a machlokas. So say either like Rabbi Yochanan, according to Rabbi Yochanan, if you're saying that what can't you use? The Bryce over here said that you can't if the wine is not fit to mizbeach, you can't use that for kiddush. So say which one you hold. If you mean because you hold like a b'shum levi, so say it's not good like a b'shum levi. And if it's good, Rashbam says right where the lines get wide, b'shum levi chalu. Should only consider vinegar. I feel a bar per guffin. You don't make a bar per guffin. Like we said before, you make a shackle on it. Say if you hold like Rabbi Yochanan and Hachav, make a bar per guffin. Say if you hold like Rabbi Yochanan, say this kind of souring wine, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you can make a bar per guffin. And we'll say obvious for kiddush. If you can make a bar per guffin, make kiddush. If you hold like B'Shum Levi that it's not wine, it's vinegar. So you should have said ein melachin ela shackle. Should have said it more specifically, not to say wine that's fit for the mizbeach is wine that you can make kiddush on. Be specific. Are you coming to exclude diluted wine? In the Mizbeach on the Nusachim, they didn't use diluted wine. They used the strong wine, undiluted. So maybe it means over there, fine. So he said you can't use that on the Mizbeach, and maybe that's what he means. Mixed wine cannot be used for Kiddush. Mixed wine is the wine that we do make Kiddush on. That's the best wine. When you mix the wine, the strong undiluted wine with 3 parts water, that's the best wine you can have. The Rashbam says not sure where the machlokas is, but the moment to Rabbi Lazar, the kos shel bracha shem bracha v'achik. You don't make a kos bracha if it's a simcha or whatever. You don't make kos of bracha, whether it's a kiddush or whatever, until you put water in. So you can't say that we're excluding mixed wine or diluted wine. Even muta megula, we come to exclude wine which has been exposed to animals. If left it out overnight, sakani. Of course, you can't make a bracha. You can't. You're not supposed to drink it at all. Even without kiddush, you can't drink it. We're talking about which wine is it that you can't make kiddush on, right? We said the lousy wines, we said before, you can make kiddush on them. If we're talking about souring wine, that's a machlokas, so tell us which way you hold. If you're talking about mixed wine is with daf, you should make kiddush on. If you're coming to exclude exposed wine, that's you can't even drink it not for kiddush. You don't have to drink it. It's also the sakana. Sakanta chumra sakanta meisur, right? When it comes to isur, you got to be more mach. When it comes to a sakana, you have to be more machmer than an isur. Sakanas nefashos. Ilamute shel shmarm. Are we excluding this lees wine that we've been talking about for a couple of days, putting in one? Echidami. Either amatlasavas or arba. If you put in 3, right? You put in 3 measures of water onto the lees, and you come out with 4 of wine. That's wine. That's good. Chamramalye. We said everybody agrees that that's good wine. You put in 3 water, and you get 4. That means it's 3 parts water, 1 part wine. That's good wine. But if you only put in 3 and you only got 3, 3 upalga, you get 3.5. That's a machlokas Rabbanan and Echerim. And we said Echerim say that's good wine, but according to Rabbanan, it's not good wine because it's considered you got a half a part out of 6. 1 out of 6 is not wine. So which way do you say? Would you say? But that's not even wine. You wouldn't even make a bar pegafim. So either Ramatlas looked at Rabbanan Echerim, and Rashbam says it's a machlokas. So what kind of a question is that? You don't make kiddush on wine unless it's really good. If you don't make bar piyagafen on it, it's no kiddush that you don't make kiddush on it. You don't even make a bar piyagafen. So what's going on over here? What are we speaking about? Elamute shrecher, coming to exclude bad smelling wine. It's still a bar piyagafen, but you shouldn't make kiddush on that. Really, it's excluding exposed wine. I always say exposed wine you shouldn't drink at all. Even though it passed through a filter. That's the point. Even though it passed through a filter, you say the wine's been exposed. You're not supposed to drink. Even today, you shouldn't leave a cup of water outside, overnight, and then drink it without, maybe an animal got in there or something. You're not worried about snakes so much today, but whatever, shouldn't drink it. But even if it was exposed to a snake, you can pour it through a filter. I wouldn't recommend it. Pour it through a filter, and the filter will hold the venom up, and you can drink that water, right, or that whatever the liquid is. He says, good. Even though it's not a sakon anymore, why? Because the venom was stuck in the filter, and you filtered it out. But the Rav Nechemi, who says you could do that, afilu hachi, still not choice wine. You're not going to make kiddush on that. So we say at the end of the day, what do you make kiddush on? On wine that's fit from mizbeach. What are you going to exclude? All these other wines that aren't so good are also okay, right? Ella. Right. So what are you excluding? You're excluding either wine that smells bad. You shouldn't make kiddush on that, or wine that was exposed and it's not a sakana anymore because you removed the venom. You passed it through a filter, right? Even though this wine is not a sakana anymore, is it a choice wine? Would you bring this wine to the president, to the governor? Would you give this to your governor? Will you bring this wine to the president or to your governor? Will he be happy with this kind of wine that's been exposed and you just, you filtered it out, like you wiped off the dirt or something? It's ridiculous, right? So you wouldn't bring that as a, so that's the wine that he means you shouldn't use for kiddush, even though it's a bar piragofen. But if it smells bad, or if it's been exposed, and even though you filtered it, you shouldn't bring that wine. You shouldn't use that wine for kiddush. But obviously, if you can't make a bar piragofen on it, that's water. You can't make kiddush on that. Rav Kana Chamua Rav Mishasha. Rav Kana the father of Mishasha asked this kasha of Rava. Chamar chibarima. What about white wine? You can use white wine for kiddush. Amarle al teira yayin kisa adom. Don't see wine when it's red. Or don't be afraid of wine when it's red. I'm not with the translation is right. I think it means when it's red, meaning real wine is red. And some Rishonim Taka say, the Ramban says, you're not allowed to make Kiddush on white wine. We do. Most poskim say you can make Kiddush on wine, but it's certainly not the choices. And when you really, like on Pesach, when we're makbid on the wine, on the four coasts, we're makbid to have red wine. Kankanim b'sharom, the Mishnah said, if you buy jars, jugs, these are earthenware vessels in the Sharon where they make them. That's their hometown. The source where they make all these jugs. You have to accept 10 inferior quality jugs. Pitasos, it's called lamea. What do we mean by that? Tana pitasos. No, so we go first. They're nice looking, but they're tarred together. They're tarred. They're lined with tar to hold it together. Meaning they haven't been dried properly. They might develop cracks, etc. And they put tar on it to make sure that they are sealed. So those aren't really choice jugs, but it's normal. If you buy 100, it's normal to get 10% 10% that aren't so kosher. Obviously, if they're broken, you don't have to accept that. But if they're tarred, you have to accept 10 out of 100 or 10%. Says the Mishnah, we mentioned this Mishnah yesterday. If you sell wine, and it turned bad, it turns sour, so we said the seller's not responsible for it. So we said this does not go apparently like Shmuel. We said to Shmuel said yesterday, well, it's the mazel of the buyer. When he bought it, it was okay. Obviously, he tasted it when it was okay. Took it home, it wasn't good. So this goes like Shmuel. That what? It's too bad. It's the buyer's bad mazel. The seller's not responsible. Okay, the Gemara is going to explain what we're talking about. That how will Rav says that you are responsible the first 3 days. Depends whose kalim they're in. The Gemara is going to talk about that. If we're knowing that this seller has a reputation, his wine always goes bad. Even though it's good when you taste it, everybody who buys wine from this guy, the next day it's no good. Then it's a mekachtos. It's a bad sale. He gets his money back. If the seller told him, I'm selling you yain mevusam, sweet smelling, spiced wine, it must last. They buy it at the beginning of the season, Pesach time. It's got to last until Shavuos. After Shavuos, it's very hot. It may not last longer than that, but it's got to last. If it didn't last, if he says, I'm selling you a spiced wine and it doesn't last till Shavuos, he can get his money back. It's a mekachtos, right? The Yoshen, if he says, I'm selling you aged wine, Mishal Eshtaka, it's got to be last year. It's got to be a year old. Umiyushan, that's especially aged, very aged. Mishal Gimel, it's got to be 3-year-old wine. In other words, you got to stand by your word. If he sold them stam wine and it goes bad, we'll see that speaking about it was in the buyer's jars. You put it in the buyer's jars. They could say it's your tough luck. It was your jars. But if he said, I'm telling you, spiced wine, it better last till Shavuos. Aged wine, it's got to be a year old. Very aged wine, Yushan, it's got to be 3 years old. And then we'll see from the Gemara tomorrow. Rabbi Yosef says that's only if it was the buyer's jars. But if it belonged to them, if it was the seller's jars, he could say, listen, take it back. It's your stuff. That's how Rav will explain the Mishnah. Rav said that if you sell wine to somebody else and it goes bad for the first 3 days, it's the seller's responsibility. The Mishnah says that you could say too bad, it went bad. That's only if it's in the buyer's jars or jugs. But if it's in the seller's jars, like the Gemara says, lo shanu ela b'kankanim blokecha b'kankanim democher, you could say, listen, it's your jars, it's your wine, take it back. The Gemara is going to explain it's only speaking about when he told him, I'm selling you the wine for cooking, or he told him I want it for cooking, meaning I'm going to use it a little bit of a time. Otherwise, the seller could say, listen, I sold it to you. You should have drunk it right away. What are you keeping it around for? It's your fault. You shouldn't have kept it. So when the mocher told him, I'm selling it to you for cooking, and they agreed on that, that means he's going to use a little bit of a time. He's not going to drink it all right now. All right, tomorrow we'll pick it up from here, from the Gemara. Tomorrow and Wednesday at the regular time. Tomorrow regular time, not 5 minutes early, regular time tomorrow and Wednesday.
Regular time. Thank you, beautiful.